All right, let's talk about some of these NFL rule changes. There was a lot of little rule changes, but the four that I pulled from all the rule changes that I think are the most notable is one, the hip drop tackle is gone. So Jimmy Ward, you might want to retire. That's your whole game. He actually put out a funny clip saying that this is the end for him. The challenge rule got tweaked a little bit. So before it was you had to get both of your challenges right in order to challenge a third time. Now, if you get one of your two challenges right, you can get a third challenge. So that's kind of a nice little tweak. I never understood. I understand limiting it because you don't want to slow down the game. But at the same time, if there's legitimately something to challenge, I feel like you should be able to challenge it within reason. So I like that rule change. The trade deadline got moved back 1 week, which I think makes a lot of sense because they've added an extra week to the NFL season. So I like that. And then the final rule, the biggest rule, is the kickoff rule, which changed drastically. It looks just like the XFL did, which I thought was entertaining for those of you that watched any XFL football. Probably not a ton of you in the chat, but maybe you watched a little bit. I like the kickoff rule, and I think that there's some mixed feelings on this one in particular. Sunil, out of all the rule changes, which one stood out to you the most? And I'll also add this. The 49ers were one of three teams. It was them, the Packers, and someone else. I think it might have been the Raiders voted against the kickoff rule change. Anyways, what are your thoughts on some of the rule changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kickoff change is going to be interesting. I think there's room for that to actually be a deciding factor in some games. Not only, because I think it gives kick returners a chance to actually like run it back now because it's not always going to go be a touchback, but now your kicker is going to be a lot more in play late in games, right? Like, because you have to get it in that drop zone. Otherwise there could be some, yardage. I think it goes out to the 40 if you don't get in the drop zone, or if you kick it all the way into the end zone, then, it comes out to, the 30, but you could gain some extra yards if your kicker isn't accurate with those kick returns or with those kickoffs. So I think that's going to be intriguing. Obviously the hip drop, I know why the league is doing it, because it did cause some injuries. And I know everybody's kind of up in arms, especially on the defensive side. Oh, you're making it even harder for us to play defense. But I feel like we say that every time they make a defensive change, as far as the way they could tackle and the rules and all that kind of stuff. And by the next season, we forgot all about it. So it is unfortunate. I think obviously defense is getting harder and harder to play, but ultimately these guys are making millions of dollars playing a game. They'll figure it out. Because defense is still going to be important, right? So yeah, I mean, overall, the kickoff one I think is going to be the most impactful because it's completely different. And usually there's going to be a team that figures out the strategy before the other teams, and then it's going to be like copycat. But it's going to be interesting, at least for this season, because some team's going to come up with a unique way to utilize it as strategy, and then we get to go from there.
Well, what I find interesting about this rule is one of the early conversations I think we had this offseason. We talked about special teams, and we reiterated the point that we like Debo to return kicks. You said it, and then I piggyback on like, yeah, absolutely. We talked about Ayuk maybe with the punts, but Debo returning kicks, absolutely, more so than ever. If you look at the way that this thing is set up, the players can't move until the ball is caught or fielded by the player. So that makes it very safe for the players. Debo's a dynamic player. If you can get the ball in his hands and have it in a safer situation, I'm all for it. I would love to see Debo back there returning kicks.
Yeah, and I think he gets a 10-yard head start on everybody else. So it's not like guys just with 30 yards of pure sprint going at him. It's going to be guys with only a 10-yard, and he's probably much faster than the guys that are stronger than him that could bring him down. He's probably much stronger than the guys that are faster than him. So it's a unique combination. I mean, I think that definitely Debo could flourish in that.
One thing that they had flirted with this year was a change to the onside kick rule as well. They did change it in the fact that there's no more surprises, obviously, because the onside kick looks very different than the actual kickoff. But one thing they had talked about, and I wish they would have implemented with this change, was instead of an onside kick, you get the ball 4th and goal from the 20-yard line. And if you convert and you get in the end zone, you get the ball back. I wish they would have done that. I think that would have made it much more exciting than the onside kick, which I get both probably have a slim chance of conversion. But how much more fun would that be to see the offense on the field trying to get the ball back and earning the ball back? I would love for that to happen.
Sure. I mean, right now it's pretty much impossible to get an onside kick. So, anything that leads to better strategy, I think makes the game more exciting. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Brother Bob says, so we wasted a third on Moody. Damn it, Kyle Levy. Yeah, that was the big thing. I do remember when he got drafted, and my reaction was not a positive one. Everybody in the chat said, "Well, I mean, he'll be able to put the ball in the end zone on kickoffs at least." All right.
He didn't even really do that.
Here we are. I know he didn't
even really do that, to be honest. So.
He didn't really do that. He had to lay for it. It was what he was asked to do, which was interesting. Very, very interesting.